This video is going to show you how to think about doing the background. So a couple things you can do. For the background, first of all, you're going to be in Layers window and you can select the background. And you can do a color, just a solid color. Keep it light. The whole idea is to keep it something that will not kind of fight against the attention of the words. So you can see that this color might not be good because it kind of matches a little too well with a lot of the other stuff. So if I hit Command U, you can change the color. Make it brighter, make it darker. Another thing you can do, and I suggest anything you do beyond a solid color, create a new layer. So hit the new layer button to the folded page, and it'll put a layer right on top of the background. If you had the background selected and you hit the new layer button, that new layer forms right on top of the background. So if you wanted to do something, let's say like a gradient, you can certainly do that, but take into account that the background should not be overstated above what's going on with your letters. That's going to be the most important thing. Now, if you decide to do something like a photo, this is a photo by Winston Churchill, so I have a picture of Winston Churchill. You can certainly bring the picture over to your design. You can size it up. Hold down the Shift button as you're making it larger and smaller. So as you transform it, it's not going to stretch it out. It's going to keep in proportion. So something like this might look pretty nice, but again, the color, it might be just a little bit too bright. It may take away from the design. It's hard to read. So a couple things you can do is that you can keep you have the background just a plain color, and I just made this gradient. I'll throw that one away. If you take the opacity and you lower it, it'll make it so you're almost like doing it through light vellum or tracing paper, and the reason why it's turning blue is that it's allowing this background color to peek through. So if you're on that photo and you change the layer's opacity, you can see the color through. So that tones it down. That might be a consideration. One other thing I want to mention here is you could put a brush on this. Now, I downloaded some brushes. So if you go to the brush tool, the shortcut's the letter B, and I would open up that window showing brushes. So the way you can set this up, as you see these, you have brush settings and you have brushes. These are already built in. You have general brushes, dry media brushes, wet media brushes. So again, if you decide to do something, I'm going to make it a new layer, and if you wish to paint something in the background, my suggestion is to do that, but to do this on a separate layer. So if you wanted to have some drawings on there, you can absolutely explore. Now if you look at the Layers window, you can see it's on its own layer. So if I wanted to make any modifications to that, if I hit the Command U button, for example, I can change the color and stuff like that, but it won't interfere with the whole background. The background will still be there, and if I don't like it altogether, I can throw it in the trash. Now I wanted to download brushes. This should be a separate video, but I feel like it's easy enough that you can kind of work through it. Now the brushes that I want to talk about are free. So I'm just going to do a search Photoshop. There's a couple of sites that work out pretty well. Brusheezy is very good. I use also myphotoshopbrushes.com. So I'm going to go to Brusheezy, and this allows you to see some different types of brushes. They're a little bit different than what you're normally used to seeing. So you want to stay away from the premium. You're going to have to register. That'll cost you money. Let's say that I want these watercolor designs on here, or smoke or cracks. Let's try cracks. So I open it up, I hit free download. Okay. Shows up in this footer. I'm going to drag it out so I can see the desktop. I'm going to drag it out onto the desktop. And it is a zip drive. So a zip drive is a drive that is compressed, tightly wound up. So I'm going to release it. So you double click. Okay. And it shows up, sometimes the ABR shows up, sometimes it'll just be a folder and inside will be other things. So this is the ABR is the type of file that we're going to be loading into Photoshop. So I'm just going to move this over, make some room, and I'm going to put this in my graphic design folder so it's not like lingering outside somewhere. Okay. Just got to remember where you have this. I'm now going to go ahead and open up my brushes, just like this. Make sure that that's exposed. Make it bigger. Then I'm going to hit these three lines here, 4 lines, stacked lines, and I'm going to import brushes. So I'm going to go find that ABR file. There it is, and I'm going to open. So it shows up right there. So these, again, these are the ones that are already loaded into your Photoshop program. This one I loaded the other day, and then these are my new ones. So I'm going to expand the folder by clicking on the arrow. So they might not look like brushes that you would normally use. They kind of look like blurred. But the way that you use these is that you really kind of use them as stamps. So you can see this kind of gives a preview of what it's going to look like. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm also going to pick a color. I'm going to pick like a black, see what it looks like. You can make the brush bigger by hitting the brackets next to the P. And I'm just going to click. So you can see that makes a really kind of neat texture. So if I hit Command Z to undo, I can find another one of these. And you can keep selecting them. Some people actually do a little bit of overlapping, trying different brushes, overlapping one on top of another. And you could do this with clouds, you could do it with watercolor. It's just a nice effect. And again, so the places that I put them is right here in this other layer, this background layer right here above, above the background. So again, if I wanted to dial it down, I can go with the opacity and lower the opacity, make it a little more subtle. If I want to hit Command U and change the color that I have, if I hit Colorize and move the saturation up, it will, should introduce another color to it. You can see the colors kind of coming out here. So that is how that is going to go. So I think I gave you enough to think about. So the background, you can either do a solid color, you can make it a picture, you can download a brush. One last thing is if you decide on using something and you don't want to make any changes but you still can't see the letters well, one of the last things you can do is you can take all of your letters and merge them together. So I selected the top one, hold down the Shift button, select the last one. It'll select the whole list, and I'm going to go to Merge Layers. So what I have here is all just the letters. So we did this with the last project. You can double click on it, on the layer, and now you have your blending options, and you may find that even just a simple stroke, a simple outline increasing, I want this to be on the outside, just a simple stroke around the outside might add to it, a drop shadow, an outer glow. You know, you can try different things just to have the letters stand out a little bit if you have a problem seeing it. But again, you don't want this to be too overstated. You don't want this to stand out against the letters. The letters should be the most important part of the design. So you just, when you do this, you just want to make sure that it is it looks soft enough. So, all right, I think I gave you enough to think about. Good luck.